Lucy Letby and the doctor she loved. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Many of you will be familiar with who Lucy Letby is. If you're not, I'll provide you with a brief summary and explain why she's relevant to my work. Lucy Letby, who was born in 1990, is a British former neonatal nurse. She was convicted of murdering 7 infants and attempting the murder of 7 others between June 2015 and June 2016. She came under investigation following a high number of unexpected infant deaths, which occurred at the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital 3 years after she began working there. Letby was charged in November 2020 with 7 counts of murder and 15 counts of attempted murder in relation to 17 babies. She pleaded not guilty. Prosecution evidence included Letby's presence at a high number of deaths, 2 abnormal blood test results, and skin discoloration interpreted as diagnostics of insulin poisoning and air embolism. Inconsistencies in medical records, Letby's removal of nursing handover sheets from the hospital, and her behaviour and communications, including handwritten notes interpreted as a confession. In August 2023, Letby was found guilty on 7 counts each of murder and attempted murder. She was found not guilty on 2 counts of attempted murder, and the jury could not reach a verdict on the remaining 6 counts. A murder charge in which the jury failed to find a verdict was retried in July 2024. She pleaded not guilty and was convicted. Letby was sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order. Management at the Countess of Chester Hospital were criticised for ignoring warnings about Letby. The British government commissioned an independent statutory inquiry into the circumstances surrounding the deaths, which began its hearings in September 2024. Letby is under investigation for further cases. Since the conclusion of her trials, after an embargo and certain reporting was lifted, some experts have expressed doubts about the safety of her convictions, raising questions over the use of medical and statistical evidence, technical errors including mislabeled door swipe data and motive. Some medical professionals contest the interpreted diagnostics as not sufficient for criminal evidentiary use and implausible, arguing the autopsies indicated the infants had died of natural causes. Applications for repeal of a new trial have been rejected by the Court of Appeal for a failure to meet the admission criteria for new evidence. Accordingly, despite these reservations, she remains convicted and her appeals have failed. If you'd like to understand more about what she did and my detailed analysis of what she is, go to the Ultra channel and search for Lucy Letby there, and you'll find a fascinating breakdown of her behaviours. If you've already done so, or if you can't be bothered, naughty, then spoiler ahead, I'm going to tell you what she is, because this is relevant to for the purposes of the content of this video. As I have explained in considerable detail in a number of videos on the Ultra channel, Lucy Letby is a narcissist. I set out the evidence explaining all of that, so you can access it all. Now, having established what she is, we can then look at more of her behaviour through the prism of her narcissism, which includes more information that has come out in the course of the inquiry that I mentioned a little earlier in the video. As reported by Liz Hull in the Daily Mail, it was one of the most dramatic and revealing moments of Lucy Letby's 10-month criminal trial. From behind a screen, one of her former work colleagues, a paediatrician, gave his name to the jury, and, at the sound of his voice, the former neonatal nurse suddenly became tearful, standing up abruptly as if to try to leave the glass-panelled dock. Pausing there, the appearance of this doctor, who would be regarded as meaningful by Lucy Letby, would only be interpreted as a threat to her control. Hence, it was necessary for her to seek to nullify that threat to control, and her narcissism sought for her to withdraw, but she wasn't able to. It was the first time and one of the only times that Letby could not hold back or hide her emotions during the case. Or rather, the threat to control that the evidence provided by this doctor represented provoked a visceral response from her vis-à-vis her narcissism, causing her to feel anxiety and to dole out a pity play as part of an attempt to nullify the threat to control. The married doctor who worked with Letby at the Countess of Chester Hospital was described by prosecutors as her boyfriend, a description he has always refused to comment on. And the court heard how over a period of just 3 months in 2016, the pair swapped more than 1,300 flirty messages over Facebook, often late at night. Pausing there. This is further evidence that supports the finding of her being a narcissist. First of all, they're traded late at night, which is a lack of boundary recognition as a consequence of unsociable hours. The sheer volume of messages exchanged over just 3 months shows a sense of entitlement and lack of boundary recognition. And of course, the nature of them being flirtatious is part of the desire, subconscious, to assert control over this doctor as an intimate appliance within Lucy Letby's fuel matrix. Later they met for walks and meals and went on day trips to London together in their free time away from work. Letby denied, first line of the twin lines of the narcissistic defence, having an affair or being in love with the medic, although a note discovered at her home by police following her arrest perhaps betrayed her true feelings. "My best friend, I loved you and I think you knew that. I wanted you to stand by me, but you didn't," Letby had written on the scrap of paper, next to the doctor's name, which was surrounded by love heart doodles. Pausing there. Although as a narcissist, an unaware one, Lucy Letby is incapable of emotional empathy and therefore cannot love. Like so many narcissists, the narcissism causes her to believe that she loves, because this is a very effective way of compelling the narcissist to assert control. Accordingly, she believed that she loved this individual. This week, that paediatrician, who cannot be named for legal reasons and is known only as Dr. U, made a much-anticipated appearance before the public inquiry that is investigating Letby's crimes. In evidence made via an audio feed that will shock the families of her victims, he not only admitted to standing by the killer nurse for months after she was moved off the neonatal unit in July 2016 and placed into an administrative role, but also to try to help salvage her derailed career. He claimed he had no knowledge of his consultant colleague's suspicions about Letby, and in September 2016, he was telling Letby in messages, "You are still the best neonatal nurse I have ever worked with," supporting her in her grievance against the hospital trust, rather than questioning her role in the deaths of the babies in her care. Pausing there, this is demonstrative of the way that a victim will be taken in by a narcissist, that he fails to see the evidence which suggests that she's anything but the best neonatal nurse, and instead causes him to be duped. Even after leaving the Countess in September 2016 to work as a locum consultant at Liverpool's Alder Hey Children's Hospital, he was still looking out for Letby. In December 2016, 6 months after she was moved off the unit, where they had worked together, he wrote to his new bosses appealing for Letby to be allowed to make ad hoc visits under his supervision to watch operations on babies and attend outpatient clinics, team meetings and other observational sessions. Now, given the seriousness with what she was charged with, and of course what then came to pass by way of her conviction, you would probably think to yourself, what on earth was he thinking? But it's evident this individual is somebody that has emotional empathy, but his sense of judgment has been warped as a consequence of his emotional thinking, as a consequence of his involvement with this particular narcissist. Those visits in March and April 2017 included a roadshow information session relating to insulin pumps, the substance Letby used to try to kill 2 baby boys, and took place after a senior manager at the Countess, who knew Letby was suspected of causing harm, sent a letter of approval to Alder Hey. It apparently made no mention of why she was not working as a nurse in Chester, albeit stipulating that she must have no direct contact with patients and should be supervised at all times. Dr. Yu told the inquiry his understanding was that Letby was still having some patient contact at the Countess by attending clinics in the obstetrics and gynecology department at the time, and that she had simply been moved into the clerical role for retraining. It might be that he was labouring under that misapprehension because she had lied to him, or that he was saying this in order to cover up for her. He insisted he simply wanted to help her with her professional development, but the criminal trial heard that the couple continued to be very close in the spring and summer of 2017, meeting up 5 times in May and June when they visited Hertford, a small town around 16 miles outside Chester, and Cheshire Oak Shopping Centre. They also had a meal at Hickory's, an American-themed restaurant by the River Dee in Chester, met for coffee at Starbucks before going on a day trip to the capital together. Dr. Yu insisted to the inquiry this week that he had been misled and maybe manipulated by Letby, who had persuaded him to give her information assists with the assertion of control, and pass on confidential emails about babies he later learned she had attacked. Thus her narcissism has caused her to manipulate him to access information which is a residual benefit. She did so on the pretense that she was struggling with her mental health, pity play. He said she told him she was having trouble sleeping and was anxious. So he shared the information to try to reassure her. His empathic trait of the desire to heal and fix being corrupted by his own emotional thinking. Now with hindsight, he said it feels like a mistake. It is something I have considered on a daily basis for the last 6 to 8 years, he added. During Letby's trial, prosecutor Nick Johnson KC suggested Letby was so infatuated with the father of 2, note interference with relationship, that she attacked and murdered at least 4 of her victims, knowing he would be the one crash bleep to come and help. As I explained in the analysis, this is done as part of the assertion of control over this intimate partner secondary source and to draw fuel. She created the crisis situations because she wanted to get his attention, his fuel, to work with him so they could try to save the babies together, Mr. Johnson said. It also gave her something to talk to the older doctor, who is 17 years her senior, about afterwards. The paediatrician even provided a shoulder for Letby to cry on and comforted her, telling her what a good nurse she was when she feigned upset after murdering 2 brothers, identical triplets, on consecutive shifts in June 2016. Pity play. Dr. Yu told the inquiry he was unaware that consultants at the hospital were suspicious of Letby and has since regretted supporting her in her grievance against the hospital. The trial heard that Dr. Yu and Letby's friendship had begun just a few weeks earlier, on June 2nd, 2016, when he messaged her on Facebook asking for a favour. It prompted Letby to WhatsApp one of her close nursing friends while she was working on a night shift that same evening, just before she attacked and tried to kill baby N. She wrote, "Had strange message from Dr. Yu earlier." Her friend replied jokingly, "Did you? Saying what? Go commando?" Letby said, "Asking when I was working next week as wants to talk to me about something, has a favour to ask." Her friend added, "Thinks he likes you too. Did you not ask what it was?" Letby said, "No, just said when I was working and he said he wants my opinion on something. Do you think he's being odd?" Her friend replied, "Thought as flirty as you." Letby replied, "Shut up, I don't flirt with him. Certainly don't fancy him, ha ha, just nice guy." She later claimed in cross-examination she didn't know what go commando, a phrase used to refer to wearing no underwear, meant. In other messages sent on another shift 2 weeks later, after Letby allegedly tried to murder baby N twice more on the same day, the pair discussed her upcoming annual leave and holidays in Cockington, Devon. Notice the compartmentalisation between attacking a baby and discussing more mundane matters. Letby described Dr. Yu as a sweetie, flattery, when he bought her chocolate to cheer her up, demonstrating he's under control, and offered her his car, residual benefit, demonstration of control, so she didn't have to walk home from work after the stressful shift, during which baby N nearly died and had to be transferred to a more specialist unit. In one message sent 2.5 hours after the second alleged attack on baby N, Letby told Dr. Yu about the baby's medical problems before adding, "Sat having a quiet moment and wanted to cry. Pity play." He replied, "Oh, Lucy, poor little thing. And you? Are you okay?" Demonstration of control. Fuel. "Have a cry. You'll feel better for it, I'm sure. You're welcome to take my car home if you're too tired to walk. I'll sort out picking it up in the morning." So sorry, you'd had a rubbish day. After discussing the baby's condition, Dr. Yu added, I'm sure he's had the best care possible and you will have done everything you could for him. He's demonstrating, of course, here his emotional empathy in this exchange and has been taken in by the behaviour of Lucy Letby. Rachel Langdale, KC, counsel to the inquiry, asked Dr. Yu whether it had been appropriate for him to talk about baby N with Letby at this time. Dr. Yu said, in hindsight, no. Looking at the content of the messages here, I've shared too much. It's common to give updates on how patients are without naming them, without giving lots of clinical details to help the recipient understand where that patient is up to. I gave at the time details that I thought were helpful, but I see now that probably wasn't the case. The inquiry has been told that baby N's parents were horrified to learn that their son had been discussed by the pair over Facebook on their private mobile phones. His mother accused Dr. Yu of blatantly breaching her son's patient confidentiality. Notice that Dr. Yu is evidently not a bad individual, but even he has been caused to engage in poor behaviour as a consequence of his desire to help Lucy Letby. The corruption of his empathic traits has presented a problem. Dr. Yu agreed baby N's parents would likely find the messages upsetting, but insisted there had been no malice in them. However, the inquiry heard baby N's mother has lodged a formal complaint about Dr. Yu with the hospital where he now works. An investigation into his conduct is ongoing. Dr. Yu was also on duty when Letby murdered the two triplets, known as baby O and baby P, on consecutive shifts around a week later on June 23rd and June 24th. Later that night, Letby messaged Dr. Yu, "Do I need to be worried?" assertion of control, when she discovered one of the consultants, Dr. John Gibbs, had been asking about his care. Dr. Yu told the inquiry, "I didn't know exactly what she was worried about, but I think having looked after the two babies on consecutive days, she was concerned that she would be thought to be responsible for the deaths, and as I didn't know of the number of preceding deaths, it was a reassuring no. I was aware of her mental health problems and the amount of anxiety that she had." In fact, he was so convinced of Letby's nursing capabilities, he messaged back, "You are one of a few nurses across the region, I've worked pretty much everywhere, that I would trust with my own children." This demonstrates the extent to which he has been taken in by the convincing nature of Lucy Letby to write such a thing. The fact is, Lucy Letby believed that she was in love with this doctor. She was not, because she has no emotional empathy. And you can see how he, a victim, an intimate partner, secondary source, became duped by her manipulative behaviours so that he wanted to help, that his own good nature was essentially corrupted and misused by her for her own purposes. Another example of how the narcissist's behaviour corrupts empathic traits of the victim, leads the victim to be misled and engage in behaviour which could be viewed as inappropriate. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.